Professor of Feminist Legal Studies at the University of the West of England. I was an academic for 26 years. I gave up my position in December 2018, stood for the European Parliament and got elected. Yay! Now I'm unemployed. Now, Margaret's here, and she's a stalwart of CEDAW and human rights as well. I just want to thank you also for organising the event. But I've been working on women's rights for about 20 odd years, and volunteering for different women's organisations, etc., but human rights in general. And that is because I'm a fundamental believer that human beings, this planet is about human beings and animals, we share it together. So when we talk about, I'm a lawyer as well, so when we talk about rights, we need to protect those rights because they are under threat, regardless of where you are in the world, regardless of what age you are, regardless of what colour you are, regardless of what background you have. So when it comes to CEDAW, it's a United Nations Convention, so it has absolutely nothing to do with the EU, it has nothing to do with the Council of Europe either. It's a United Nations Convention. It's been around since 1979, and that's when it was first signed. In the UK, we actually ratified it in 1986 under Margaret Thatcher's government. And what that means is that we decided in 1986 to not just do anything that stops those rights from progressing. We committed ourselves to actively pursue those rights. So there's a big difference between signing it and ratifying it. It's a much higher commitment. It's almost like getting engaged and getting married. Yeah, it's almost like that. So we're married to CEDAW. So what is that? Why are we standing here, or why am I standing in front of you here? Well, in the 40-year history, we celebrated 40 years of CEDAW last year. We, as the UK, has never had a representative on the CEDAW committee. And the CEDAW committee is the body of 23 experts that sit at the United Nations, independent experts, who assess whether CEDAW is being applied properly in a particular country that they look at. We have had country reports, several of them, and we've always fallen short on certain things. Quite a lot of things, actually. But some things we've done really well. So it's a balancing act. But the one thing that the committee has always said, why don't you have a representative? Why don't you do more about domesticating all of the rights that CEDAW entail into your legal system in the UK? And that's what we're campaigning about. So one is a representative to make sure women's voices from the UK are represented on the committee in terms of an independent expert. And secondly, to make sure all of those rights that we signed up to in 1986, a long time ago, some people in this room might not have been born at that time, yeah, and also, and are incorporated into our domestic law. The reason that we need it is because the Equality Act 2010 is fantastic. It's a consolidating act, and it has done an awful lot to progress equalities in this country, but it hasn't gone far enough. And it's also regressing, in my view, and many other people's views. So when it comes to race relations, when it comes to community cohesion, when it comes to socioeconomic inequalities, when it comes to disabilities, when people with disabilities, all of those things intersect. And they intersect in particular with women, because as we know, women, as we heard yesterday, the life expectancy of poor women in particular is going down. It's not even stabilising as it had been for several years, it's now going down in many different parts of the UK. So when will the UK have a representative? Why don't we have one? It's a big question I'd really like answered. Yes, and Margaret, you've asked again and again, and there's been questions in the House of Lords, and the answer diplomatically is there are other rights that are competing. There are other committees which we are interested in, being on the Human Rights Council, for example. Hello, come on in. The Economic and Social Council. And we are therefore not going to put forward a representative on the Women's Rights Committee. And for many of us, that's not good enough. We've waited 40 years. Surely by now, we've gone through all the committees, we can have a representative from the United Kingdom to progress women's rights. It's not like women's rights are at the forefront of the whole world, the best in the whole world. That's absolutely not the case. women's rights intersect with disabilities, with race, with sexual orientation, sexual identity, you name it. So there's a majority of people who are women. Women are in the majority still. It's not a minority, it's not a vulnerability. It's about asserting rights for all so that all of our society can move up and can progress. So that's why we're in favour of this campaign. So CEDAW itself has many different articles, and as a lecturer for 26 years I could stand in front of you for 2 hours and tell you about each one of them. No, I'm only kidding. Seriously, I've got a very dry sense of humour. But there's some fundamental ones. Why we want it in domestic law is because in the Equality Act 2010, you've got a big divide of rights between public and private. So the private sector, some of those rights don't apply to them. You can't enforce it. CEDAW's not like that. It doesn't make that dividing line at all. So whether you are working in the media, whether you're out in the street walking there, whether you're in this building, whether you're working for someone, it doesn't matter. It's all covered by CEDAW. So it's a really comprehensive Bill of Rights for women. It's been around for such a long time. It's been checked that it is sound. So that's what we're asking for. Get CEDAW incorporated into domestic law so that we finally get women to an equal status with men.